Anyway, 803-0550. It is Football Friday, brought to you by Celino Law. Car crash, call Celino. Call the 8s and by Crosby's Pizza and Subs, Crosby's Hometown Fuel, game day ready since 1922. The Big O, Jerry Ostroski, joins us on the Western Hotline, former Buffalo Bills offensive lineman, 100 games. And Jerry and I talk every week on the Bills Squad show, and every once in a while I say, like, why don't you come on GR and chat with us? So he's up early and on, ready to talk Bills. Jerry, good morning.
Good morning. What's going on, fellas?
You know, we're talking Bills, and we're also doing that thing. You know, every once in a while, you could just have a conversation as a football fan. And if you watched the game last night, you see Chase and Higgins carve up the Steelers. And, you know, I think it's natural, not to say that you could make it happen, and the Bills are in some sort of horrible situation, but you just dream about having like a Jamar Chase, right? Like a Chase and Higgins.
Right.
Chase got 20 targets in this game and destroyed the Steelers.
23.
23. Yeah. And Joe Flacco walks into Cincinnati and just rolls Pittsburgh. It was a sight to see, you know?
You know, I think that sometimes we get a little bit, we forget some things as far as the NFL goes. And when, coaching matters a lot, and there's a lot of things like that. But honestly, at the end of the day, it still is a player-driven league. It's about the players. It's about big-time players. It's about guys getting the ball in their hand, making plays, all those things. And, you know, when you have two guys like that on your offense like they do in Cincinnati, it's obvious. You know, they just went plug-and-play quarterback. They found one that understood the system, and obviously Flacco understood the game plan, which is get the ball to him as much as possible. And you know, big plays are going to happen. And, you know, I just think that sometimes we forget that. I mean, and coaches will tell you that as well. I mean, there's a lot of really good coaches in this world, but they've also coached a lot of really good players. And at the end of the day, you got to have guys that can make plays.
Jerry, when you look at this Bills offense, you know, 2 weeks in a row, I think we've hit a bit of an offensive lull. And, you know, the Bills have had their lulls over the years. I don't know how often it's been the offense that has really stepped in it. What do you see that is going wrong with this offensive unit, and what can they do to fix it?
Well, you know, I don't think it's necessarily just broken, okay? I think that, you know, obviously you get fan reaction and stuff like that. And I think, like we've talked about before, Jeremy, when it is the offense, it becomes alarming. I mean, we've kind of gotten to the point where when the offense or the defense struggles, we're like, yeah, that's fine. We know offense will be okay, you know. But I just think a little bit. Sometimes you get a little complacent in what you're doing. It works, and you don't evolve week to week as much as you should, and get into a point where you get stale. And I keep saying over and over again, I mean, these guys in the league are really, really good. They watch film. You get 3 to 4 games a week of past games. It's a copycat league. They're gonna see what others are doing. And if you're not evolving as a team and adding different things week to week, all of a sudden it becomes hard. You know, I've watched this offensive line. I think Aaron Cromer adds blocking schemes weekly. I mean, he's really good at adjustments, really good at adding some things. You know, but that has to go throughout the whole offense. Everybody.
Well, we're losing Jerry here. I'll pick him up and try to get him back here. 803-0550. Stay on hold. We get Jerry reconnected, talking about the offense and kind of reinventing itself, and each week, you know, sticking with things that work.
Joe Brady did say earlier in the week, by the way, like, don't expect it to look like a totally different offense. Now, we'll see to what extent that's true, right? Like, the fact that they would be exactly the same, no new wrinkles. I don't know about that, but that he didn't really want to give in when asked about it earlier in the week as to, like, yeah, we really need to change things on offense. But then there's McDermott saying we got to get under the hood. So if McDermott goes into a meeting, it's like, yeah, I'm watching the tape. This isn't working. We can't just do the things that we've been doing all the way through.
Yeah.
Then maybe that's how you get your change.
Maybe. It is always interesting, the dynamic of the head coach. I mean, the buck stops with the head coach. He's in charge. He's the boss, so that's
right.
how it works. But the dynamic of McDermott saying, yeah, we've talked about some of his problems. And if you're a Bills fan that hears that, you might think, like, who talks to you about the ones that you've got on your defense? Because you've got some on your defense, you know. But I guess it goes unsaid. McDermott would know those, and
Yep.
the buck stops with him. Jerry back. Hey Jerry, sorry about that. You're talking about the offense and whether it's predictability or adding new wrinkles week to week.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where you have to progress offensively scheme wise. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what type of players you have. The guys in this league are good. They study film. They see what others are doing. I think teams have done a very good job defensively against the Bills and containing Allen more so this year than they have in the past. And, if you try to keep doing the same things because it worked, sometimes that's rough. And, that's why I just think they're in a rut because you got to progress. It's one of those things. A buddy of mine once said, if you don't like change, you're really not going to like irrelevance. And that's kind of what you're looking at.
Jerry, this matchup against Atlanta, it was a lot of blitz. They got a lot of talk going into it, and then that's how it kind of played out. If other teams were to try to do the same thing, maybe like, hey, Atlanta, it worked, let's try to do the same thing, how would you think the Bills would do it differently? Whether that would be running or the quick pass game, finding its legs.
Right.
If teams were to try to copycat Atlanta, how do you think the Bills would try to respond to that?
Well, I think first and foremost, you got to look at Atlanta's personnel, and they weren't big on defense, but they were fast, aggressive. They blitzed, right. So the first thing is, if a team's going to attack you with a ton of blitzing, you've got to run gap scheme runs. You've got to run power. You got to run counter. You got to control the gaps. And blitzes beat up wide zone and things like that because when you're running zone, you're relying on movement and things, and there's uncertainty. When you run gap schemes, it's downhill. You have duo, you got double teams, and you can control it. The other thing is, in pass protection, and watching this last Atlanta game, I thought they did some things pass protection-wise to control the blitz. It just wasn't executed very well, and that's got to change. I mean, you've got to get execution better up front as far as your blitz protections. When you start having guys do a bunch of blitzes, it's not so much, Joe, just getting the ball out quick, which you want to do, but you got to run slide protections. You got to, same thing as you do in the running game. You got to control gaps and then, go from there. So, yeah, I mean, some of the stuff pass pro wise, I thought they tried to do, they just didn't execute it. And then we didn't get to the gap running schemes until the second half. So that's what I would do a little bit different when you're playing teams like that want to blitz and that are fast.
Jerry Ostroski joining us on the Western Hotline. Jerry, how about Dalton Kincaid? They missed him in this game, and it's year 3 for Kincaid. I feel like Bills fans maybe have been waiting for the statistical breakout, but maybe this is the year where we've finally really seen them using him in a way where their offense is at its best when he's on the field. How much of a difference does it make for him to not be out there?
Oh, it was huge. Like you said, Jerry, I mean, we've been waiting for the emergence of Kincaid since we drafted him, and it hasn't been terrible. I think he's been pretty good, but third year, you kind of expect an understanding of what's going on, and obviously him and Josh spent a bunch of time this offseason. Tight ends are I've been preaching this for a couple of weeks now because I do sports radio in Oklahoma, and we're talking about the Sooners, and that's our professional sports team in Oklahoma is the Oklahoma Sooners. But, they don't have very good tight ends. And in today's football, you have to have them because you got to win the middle of the field. The mismatches you get with tight end usage, it's huge. And it's frustrating sometimes for me as a Bills fan because it seems like we get a player like Dalton, merges, and then he goes away for a while because of injury. So it'd be nice to have one stay on the field all season, but that's not his fault. It's football, but hopefully he's back soon because I think it was obvious, guys, without him on the field this week, Josh wasn't very comfortable without knowing where Dalton was.
Jerry Ostroski on the Western Hotline chatting about the Bills' bye week. Defensively, Jerry, what now? One thing you and I've talked about a lot is while this run defense is the headline is run defense is a mess, you've not been upset with the way that they play up front, that the defensive line is really not the culprit here.
No, I think that the defensive line has been playing at a pretty good clip, honestly. I mean, I'm not saying that all positions don't make mistakes, but when you look at that group, and I think the addition of Joey Bosa has been huge. I think he's given him a big veteran presence. It's given Rousseau somebody else to lean on. Rousseau's now healthy, so he's had a couple of good games in a row. And then, of course, the unexpected emergence of Deion Walker has been – he's probably saved it quite a bit for the Bills, considering the injuries they had inside. You know, they had to rely on this guy for, I think, over 50 snaps last week. And we're talking about this offseason of limiting him doing, you know, OTA reps because of his back, right? So, I mean, the emergence of Walker's been huge for the Bills. But, yeah, I think they do a good job of being where they're supposed to be. They're not a two-gap scheme. It's a, you know, they shoot gaps, they play gap control, but they're not going to tie up a bunch of offensive linemen. So the second-level guys have had a little bit tough lately. I think Shaq Thompson has really helped us quite a bit. You know, 31-year-old linebacker, used to be at Carolina. I think he does a good job, and honestly, he's kind of saved us in some things with some guys beat up. But, yeah, I mean, if your second-level mesh and that first level don't fit right, you have issues.
What about the third level? How dire is it for you in the secondary and it probably safety specifically right now? How do you see that position kind of evolving as the season goes on here?
Well, I mean, as much as, you know, people like to get on, you know, Cole Bishop, I see Cole Bishop progressing. I mean, he's a young player still. He's learning. I like athleticism. I think he's got willingness. Still learning maybe some angles in the NFL, some things he might have got away with at Utah he can't get away with in the league with the athletes we play against. You know, that other safety spot is concerning. It'll be interesting to see what they do there over the bye week. I know we've heard rumblings of Jordan Poyer. I'd like to think that at some point Rapp can get close to the form that he had last year, because I've loved Taylor Rapp as a safety for us in the past. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of physical, intimidating safeties in the secondary. I mean, I come from, you know, I grew up outside of Philadelphia. It started with Andre Waters and, you know, Brian Dawkins and some of the you know, those types of guys. And I'd love Rapp for that, you know, that style of play in the past. We haven't seen it this year, and for whatever reason he's struggling. Hopefully we get that soon. But yeah, there needs to be something there. And it's funny, even with different parts, and they're like, oh, get this guy, get that guy. It's still hard in the secondary because you got to have, you know, cohesion, and how does that all work? And you're just not really seeing that right now out of that Bills secondary.
Jerry Ostroski. Jerry, thanks for the time, and we'll talk again soon.
Hey, guys, apologize for phone issues. I'm up here in the land of Spencer Brown,
all right.
Cedar Falls, Iowa. So going to watch some UNI football this week, but always enjoy the time. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck to the Panthers, UNI Panthers, is that right?
That is right.
All right.
Panther pride, baby.
Very good. Thanks, Jerry. You can find Jerry, of course, on the Overreaction Buffalo podcast and Bill Squad show as well, part of the Locked On Bills channel. You know, it's funny. Like, this is something that you could think about any time, or if you pay attention to every word the Bills say, which sometimes we do. Is it curious or interesting that Rapp being such an issue, it's got to be a surprise to them? McDermott, in the preseason, after the preseason game, we're all wondering who's going to play safety. Mm-hmm. It was, we're looking for the guy to play, someone to play next to T-Rapp.
Right.
And here we are, and it's like, yeah, T-Rapp,
he's the problem.
He's a problem.
Right.
So they've got to be very surprised by that. Is there an injury? Is there he's trying to do too much to cover up for somebody? I don't know. But they're surprised by it. There's no doubt about that, right?
They're definitely surprised by it. The money wasn't big there, but really ever since they signed him, what they signed him to, a 3-year deal? When they brought him back, he had signed that 1-year deal after starting in LA, and then he signs here, and it's 1 year of being a rotational guy, and then it was, we're bringing him back, and he's the starter.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that great last year. Like, it was. No, there were shortcomings last year.
A lot of the numbers pointed to he was actually worse on the field for them than DeMar Hamlin was last year. But it was so close that, like, nobody would ever, you don't have to get up in arms about it. But maybe that covered it up for him. Like, he maybe wasn't playing that well, but everyone knew Hamlin wasn't a starting safety next to him, that we just didn't pay attention to what was happening on Rapp's side of the field. I mean, a 3-year deal, $10 million. The money's nothing. But you sign a safety to a 3-year deal with guaranteed money involved, you're probably thinking he's going to start for you through the length of that contract. And you're only into the second year of it, so I would think they're surprised. Can they get to a point, though, where they're surprised enough where they take him off the field? He's not Hyde or Poyer.
No.
It should not be so difficult to bench a guy who, a year and a half ago was a rotational piece for you. I don't think it should be like this big, story to take a guy off the field that's making $3 million. I think that's what happens. Curtis Samuel signed a 3-year deal, and look, it's not really working out. Well, he's injured, but it's not a big story when he gets benched or is made a healthy inactive or a healthy scratch. It's just kind of it's a footnote.